Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Coding. In this episode, I'm going to take you through the process of the creations of a timecode node, but it's not actually like not like a fully node in Sverchok, but it's more like a script node type of node. But basically, I will try to port animation nodes timecode into Sverchok script node so that we can have the timecode nodes that we can use in Blender. So yeah, it might be a little bit confusing, but I'll show you what I mean. So I'm gonna save this first. So this is gonna be Sverchok timecode, and we know that this is animation nodes, and the animation nodes already have timecode nodes. Very handy. Timecode generator here. This guy takes like a frame number and then it will convert it into timecode. I'll give you an example. So that's an example of timecode, SMPTE, I think. So by default it's set to 24, so as it goes to over 23 and then it starts to go into this 1 second and then so on and so on. Okay, that's animation nodes. Ideally, I can just pass this value into Sverchok, and I know there is a way to do that, but I will recreate this node inside Sverchok. And the way I do it is actually this is might be a little bit like the hard way to do it, but it's not like I think it's gonna be useful to show the whole process. So this is a timecode generator node of animation nodes, right? We can actually, because this is open source, right? Jack's look actually allows us to look at the code. So if I search for the timecode nodes in animation nodes, what do you call this? Animation nodes source, and then there is this one Python codes responsible for that particular node, and it's very simple script, only 18 lines actually. So I can see that the important line here is to get from bpy.utils import SMPTE from frame. This is a function, and underneath we have this like something that to create the nodes. This one actually grabbing the FPS as a default, I think, and then this is the actual functions. SMPTE from frame, and then give it a frame number, and then give it a frame per second frame rate, and then it should return the frame. It should return us the time code. So it's pretty simple, right? We can copy this, recreate it in Sverchok. And animation nodes doesn't recreate this SMTP from scratch. It's actually using the bpy.utils, like I said in the previous live noding. So we can easily recreate this in Sverchok. I'll switch to scripting, I guess. Let's save this again. So we know that from bpy.utils we have this SMPTE from frame. We have this function, and this function takes frame number and then also the FPS, maybe 24 by default, and then it will return a value, and you can see that it's working right away. We can simply use these functions and inside Sverchok. So it's very basic, very simple, and I'll show you. So we want to switch to compositing, we can delete this guy, switch to Sverchok, create a new node tree, and then in Sverchok I'll name this timecode, and we don't have the timecode nodes, of course. We're gonna use the scripted node LITE. I kind of started to get used to this scripting method in Sverchok. Not super simple, but once you understand the basics, you can kind of the basic grasp of it, you can start typing script a little bit faster. So I'll name this timecode.py. and by default it doesn't do anything. But in Sverchok you kind of just give it like the input and the output parameters. For the input, we know that okay, actually I will have animation nodes here. I'm gonna get the timecode thing again, timecode generator. So it's taking, we're gonna recreate these nodes in Sverchok. So it's taking for the input, it's taking the frame number, and the frame rates by default is 24, and the output is gonna be the timecode, and the functions will be running inside it. So for the input, we're gonna have frame, and I think we can specify this is it's a single value, or as I'll just give it as the default should be, I'll just give it a 0.0, and then the nestiness I'll just give it 2. In Sverchok there's something called nestiness, kind of like a data structure. I think nestiness type 2 is actually like a single value. It doesn't have like a lot of data, so you're not gonna be passing in a lot of frame numbers, just a single frame number. Anyway, I'll just keep typing frame. Second one, we have frame rate as the by default frame rate 24, nestiness to output is gonna be the timecode as the default. I'll just give it 0, and then nestiness type 2. Don't worry too much about this, but basically after I type that, and if I run this code in Sverchok, we should get this. So yeah, we have the nodes ready, even though it's doing nothing. The next thing we want to do is to simply copy this this code from animation nodes. We know that we're gonna need bpy.utils SMPTE from frame. So I'm gonna paste that in here, and then the next, okay, we just need this script. If frame rate is bigger than 0, returns blah blah blah. Okay, fine. We're gonna do that more or less. If frame rate, so okay, this is gonna be frame rate. Reload still should gonna work. The funny thing is the default should be 24. It's not doing it. It's okay. If frame rate is bigger than 0, return. We don't need to have this. Actually, we just need to specify if frame rate is bigger than 0, we just assign it timecode equal SMPTE from frame, and then FPS equal frame rate. When we load, should be working now. Yeah, this is actually a very kind of like a brute force, but this will work as it is. It's not like we don't need to be like too elaborate sometimes. It depends on what you're doing, but anyway, this should result in something. There you go, it's the time code, and then if we plug in something into the frame, it should actually work. Frame rate is supposed to be 24, so testing it. 23, 24. Okay, it seems to work. It's actually already working. Yeah, that's actually the whole process, and then now we just need to kind of use it somehow. We can use it in many different ways. Let's say if we want to test it to a text output, for example, text. We have typography viewer in Sverchok. So if we pass in, maybe this will work. I don't know yet. That seems to work, but you know, this is like a multiple data, I believe. So this guy is taking the whole 11 digits. Maybe I should convert it into string somehow. Maybe I need to use a formula. So I'll try that. This one converting the value into string. plug into this guy. Didn't quite work. Let me check. Exception list, index out of range. Okay, still, maybe I need to join it. Alright, there you go. So if the frame is changing, we have this text changing. So that's how it works in Sverchok. And then if you want to pass this into the video sequence editor, you can do that as well. Gonna save it, and now I'm gonna switch to, because we have the system already working here. Now we're gonna switch to video sequence editor, and actually change the layout from here, video editing, and I'll switch this into the node editor and switch to Sverchok. Okay, now we're gonna create text. This is gonna be very similar to my previous live noding, where I was using animation nodes. So we have this text thing, and let's make this size 300, and the text by default is say text, but you can say anything. Hello Blender, testing. Okay, it seems to be working. All we need to do is to pipe this time code into the text using Sverchok. There must be like a quicker way to do this using like a formula node or set property. Sometimes it doesn't work unless I'm doing it wrong. So I say things like this: bpy.data scene sequence editor blah 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 text. Supposedly I can just plug this in and then it should work. Apparently it doesn't work. Maybe I did it the wrong way. Maybe string object does not support item assignment. Yeah, it's I don't know what it is, but anyway, if we try doing it like this, will it work? I'm not sure. Yeah, this guy doesn't quite work either. So I know one way that will actually work. It's when we are using the object ID selector. This is we can dig into every data block using Sverchok. You see here, bpy.data.scenes sequence editor sequence all text. We're gonna recreate that. We're gonna dig into the data and then replace it using Sverchok nodes. It might seem complicated, but this is actually super interesting and really powerful, because here you can see all the data blocks that Blender has. In this case, we want to go into the scene, so you will see. I'll do it very slowly, step by step, so we can access the bpy.data.scene scene, and we want to dig so that we can get to the text data. See, data scene sequence editor sequence all text. Okay, we're gonna do that. We're gonna use set mk3, pass in the data here, and now this is gonna be sequence editor. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is we want to dig into the what is this? Sequences all text. Sequences all. We can actually do it like this if you like. A little bit longer, but kind of nicer. See, currently we have only one data. If I have multiple of this text, we have an update. We have 4, but we only want one of them, which is the one that's called name text. So we can use filter, object ID filter here, and type in the name text and getting all of them. No, we don't want all of them. We just want the text. Maybe I'll try doing it like this. Oh well, I think I'm doing it the other way. This is simpler, I guess. I just go directly into sequences all text, and we check the value now. The value is apparently, oh, I need one more thing. bpy.utils sequence editor sequence all text. Text is the parameters. Okay, text is the attributes or the props, the properties. So we need one more text, and the output is testing. So that's correct. So we can type blah here, and then we're gonna get updates. It should say blah. Okay, say blah. Here it says blah as well. Okay, cool. So by using all of these nodes, we are accessing the data block, and we simply need to pipe in our SMPTE or the timecode into this guy, and voila. So that works. That really works. And if you want to change the size inside Sverchok, so instead of having to go here all the time, and you know, you have all kind of parameters here, all kind of props you can change. Maybe the size. Okay, the size is actually says font size. For font size, you just simply plug in the objects there and it says font size, and then give it a value of 100, for example. Pipe it in. So now this guy can be controlled from Sverchok. So you can see this is the chaining, the chaining of nodes, objects. This is a value goes into objects, but here we are using objects into the objects because we are still modifying the sequences all name text. So text, font size, maybe the color. The color is RGBA, so we can pipe in this. And what is this color? Color in. Maybe use HSV and plug this guy in, and oh, we actually need to turn on alpha. There you go, like the rainbow color. So now we can have if you really want the rainbow color, you can have it simply by using the frame, for example. Divided by frame number divided by 24. Maybe we need to use modulo. Wait, this is what's it gonna be? This one, if we divide it by 24, this is not gonna be like looping. Evaluate is actually going from 0 to 1 within this range, so we can plug that into the hue. So we have color that goes from red all the way to red again at the end. So I think that's kind of be useful. It depends on what you're doing. I think sequence editor is really interesting, and the fact that you can now control it using nodes is very powerful. Okay, slightly complicated, but you know, you have control over everything. including color. So there you go, that's the whole process. It's a slightly long and winding, but if you watch this slowly, you might understand what's going on. So I'll summarize what I did. Basically, I wanted to have timecode generator in Sverchok. So I look into animation node source code, and then apparently they're using a basic script and we can easily port it into Sverchok using Sverchok script node, which is this guy. We create this node, script node timecode. Oh, okay. Once we have that, we simply use it. And this is an example usage. Either using the typography viewer or using it for the video sequence editor here. Just piping the data into the right data block, and we should have everything working. So yeah, very interesting, very powerful. And I guess if you are learning Python and you try to learn programming, this is very interesting environment for you to try. Blender gives you a lot of possibilities to try a lot of subjects, I guess. So here, this is actually like a 3D object, and this is actually more like a 2D. This is like a video sequence editor, and the whole thing's become so easy, so simple. Hopefully this is useful. I guess if you have any feedback, suggestion, let me know in the comment section below. I think the whole process can be a lot faster and simpler, but this is one way to do it. Might be longer than you think, but I try to make it as clear as possible. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you in the next